Hello everyone. Here I am presenting you the way I gave my Cognizant interview and finally cracked it. So, in this video, I would let you know from starting that what were the steps or the procedures that were followed by Cognizant in order to finally select me in their company. There were in total 3 rounds, the first being the written round, the second being the coding, and the third being the interview. So, I was a bit scared with the fact that will I be able to clear my written round or not? Too much of my time was wasted in order to search for the questions that had already come previously. The question from these 4 genres came. Questions from quantitative aptitude were asked, covering topics like permutation combination, LCM HCF, time and work, probability, ratio proportion, averages. My 25 questions somewhat circulated around these topics only. Then came the other section, which was reasoning. Number of questions from series were asked. Calendar questions, seating arrangement, dice, alphanumeric, series, coding, decoding. Then came the other section of English grammar and comprehension. In English section, we didn't have much time because there were many sentences. In some of them, you need to give the synonyms. In the other, you need to give the antonyms. In some questions, you need to correct the sentences. In the other, you need to spot the errors. In some questions, options were jumbled and you need to arrange them in the manner that they form a correct paragraph. For me, everything went fine except for the fact that I didn't get much time to attend the comprehension questions. I attended few, but I wasn't able to attend all. Then came the technical questions, in which the questions from various topics like computer network, operating system, SQL, DBMS, computer organization architecture, Java, C, such questions were asked. In this, there was an entirely different section that was of essay writing, wherein there was a topic given to us and we need to write something on that topic within the range of 250 to 300 words. So, when I was giving my written interview, there went a rumor that you need to remember the topic in which you have written your essay because the interviewer might ask the questions from the similar topic as well. So, if in future you have to give the same pattern, make sure you remember the topic because the rumor might get true as well. So, the written test that we gave was on the AMCAT platform. AMCAT have their own pattern to decide who are the top contestants among the students. Whosoever has topped the written examination had the chance to appear for the next profile. Whereas the students who have cleared the written examination, who are not the top performers, were directly given the chance to sit for an interview of Gen C profile, which offered package of 4.5 LPA. Now the students who were qualified for Gen C next round had to appear for an additional coding round. If they qualified for the same, they were required to give an interview. If they clear the interview as well, they would be selected for Gen C next profile, which offered 6.5 LPA. Whereas, if they were not selected for the interview, which they gave for Gen C next, on the basis of their performance, they were selected for Gen C profile of 4.5 LPA. Now suppose if the person who sat for the coding round of Gen C next was not able to clear the coding round, then that person who was asked to sit directly for the interview of 4.5 LPA, that is of Gen C. So of course, the top performers were given extra advantage. So make sure that you do not take the interview round lightly. Moreover, I would like to say do not take the written round lightly because it might get you into the profile of 6.5 LPA as well. After this, the interview section came. So there were total 12 questions asked and there was just one interview. That was the combination of technical and HR interview. I had a talk with the remaining students of my batch as well. Every interviewer had their unique style of interviewing the students. Some interviewers took the interview very lightly, whereas some interviewers completely screwed the students. So my interview was somewhere ranging in between. I was basically asked 12 major questions and of course sub-questions out of those 12 questions were raised to me. First of all, I was asked to introduce myself. Make sure, friends, that when you introduce yourself, each and every word that you are speaking should be correct because the interviewer would ask the question in the same format. Most probably the way you are introducing yourself. This is the case that generally happens, but in my case, interviewer has already pre-prepared with the questions. The interviewer shared a screen with me. The screen had 12 tabs. On each tab, there was one question that the interviewer asked. I need to click the tab and then answer the interviewer. Question that was not mentioned in the tab was to introduce myself. That was a generic question. I have already prepared a video in which you should get a hint of the way you need to introduce yourself because this is the first impression that you are creating in the mind of the interviewer. And do remember the fact that during the interview, the first impression turns out to be your last impression. So make sure that you are just bang on while introducing yourself. I didn't leave my smile, my confidence throughout the interview. These are the two weapons that are used by me in all the interviews that I give. So, I introduced myself looking into the eyes of the interviewer with full confidence. Then he asked me to select the tabs and answer each tab accordingly. The first question that was written was to tell the difference between list and tuple other than mutability. So I told him that one major difference is that you already told that one can be modified and the other cannot be. The other difference lies on the way they are represented. In Python, we generally represent the list in square brackets and tuples in round brackets. Moreover, there are two layers. One is the presentation and the other being business logic layer. So we want that a business logic layer should not be modified. So when we use this BLL, we make sure that the content that we pass in BLL is tuple only, and the content that we pass in PL, that is presentation layer, is list only. Then I said that list consumes more memory and tuples consumes less memory compared to list. The list is better for performing operations such as insertion, deletion, whereas double data type is appropriate for accessing the elements. When I clicked the next tab, there was a coding screen that was made available to me, in which I was asked to write a program in order to show the concept of polymorphism. I knew Java, so I write a code in Java. Polymorphism, for your knowledge, is a way in which we represent a particular thing in more than one manner. So it was quite an easy program for me to write, because in this, we need to create the functions with the same name, just with either different number of parameters or different type of parameters. So I wrote it without giving a second thought. Third question that was thrown to me was, what are wrapper classes? So I said that I have heard of this concept in Java, that wrapper classes in Java provides us the way in which we can convert primitives into object and objects into primitives. Like when we talk about the primitive type, say primitive type is char. So corresponding wrapper class for that char primitive type would be character. Similarly, for primitive type int, the corresponding wrapper class would be integer. So he seemed to be quite satisfied with the answer. Then he threw another question, that what is JDBC? So luckily I was already knowing the concept of Java, and the question that were presented in the tab was somewhat related to the OOPS concept or the Java concept. So the interview went fine for me, but the other students who were not that adept in Java might be suffering if the same interviewer asks the same sort of question. So I told him that JDBC stands for Java Database Connectivity. Basically, it is an API that is used to connect and execute the query with the database. He then asked me that what API is. I gave him the certain definition but not the appropriate one. Then again, after learning what API is, he threw me a counter question, which was that what are the types of JDBC drivers you have heard of? So I was not very sure with this question, but I said that I'm not exactly aware of the names, but I am aware of the fact that there are 4 drivers created on the basis of their types, like type 1, type 2, type 3, type 4. I didn't give the exact name, but somehow told him the basic structure or the basic functioning of those drivers. For your information, type 1 is JDBC ODBC driver, type 2 is the native API driver, type 3 is built-in protocol driver, and type 4 is thin driver. So I was not able to recall all the names properly during the interview, so I mentioned that in the beginning itself. Then I was asked the question that what is CSRF token? So I told him that CSRF stands for cross-site request forgery. Whenever we develop a website, we make sure that whatever data a website is populating with is correct data only, and no extruder is injecting wrong data into a website. It is basically a vulnerability that allows attacker to induce users to perform actions that they do not intend to perform. When I pressed the other tab, there was a SQL question, and I was asked to execute a query that was a combination of group by and having clause. I was not able to replicate the exact query, but somewhat or the other I was trying to write and get the exact result. So I kept on trying until the interviewer said that it's okay, you might move to the next tab. Moving on to the next tab, I was again presented with a logical question in which I was asked to swap 2 numbers without using a third variable. The interviewer explicitly asked me to code in C language, since he already knew that I code in Java language, but this time he mentioned that the code should be specifically in C. So I gave him the snippet wherein I stated that x is equal to x plus y is equal to x minus y, and x equals to x minus y. In this, these variables can be swapped. And then there were certain managerial questions that were presented before me, or you can say the HR questions. So I was asked that why I want to join Cognizant only. So this is the very basic question that you might be getting in every interview of the company that you give. So I said that Cognizant has a brand associated with it. So everyone would love to work with the best and be one amongst the best. Similar is the case followed with me as well. So before giving the interview, I have searched for Cognizant, some news related to the Cognizant. So I told them that during COVID times, I have heard that many companies have thrown out their employees, but Cognizant retained their employees. They do not treat their employees as someone from whom they can only take work, but they treat their employees as their family. So I would love to be a part of the Cognizant family as well. So next question was that if you are scolded in the company for something that you didn't do, what you will do? And simultaneously, he asked me to read the another question on the tab and to combine the answers of both the questions and tell accordingly. The other question was that, what will you do if someone snatches your credit? So I said that being a part of the organization means that I should be beneficial for it. I should serve as an asset for the organization. About being scolded, I would not immediately react at the very instant, but I will let the other person know sooner or later that the thing has not been done by me, and I'll try to impress the other person by my work rather than verbally. Talking about the fact that if somebody snatches my credit, this is the thing that generally is done, I have heard. And in case of snatching the credit, I said that knowledge cannot be hidden or snatched. The other person might snatch my credit one day, but he would not be able to snatch my knowledge. Rather than me speaking, my knowledge would speak on my behalf. But I'll try talking to the person who did that in a very healthy manner without having any sort of grudges and nothing else. Because at the end, what matters for me is the growth of the company along with growth of myself. When I was asked that what are the activities that you have done in the college that proves that you are good fit for the company. So I said that during my college days, I have been endowed with many important positions, ranging from being the technical lead to being a member of the extracurricular club. I have incorporated the qualities of team spirit, discipline, dedication, persistence in me, which are the fundamental blocks for working in an organization. So, in this manner, my interview ended on a healthy note. At the end, I was asked the question from the interviewer that, is there anything you would like to ask from us? Then I asked them that, is there anything that you think that I might work upon? So he gave a beautiful answer stating that, never stop your learning. So I had a great experience giving the interview, and I think that the interviewer was quite impressed as well. But again, I would reiterate the fact that do not take your written examination lightly, because I was not able to perform good in my written examination, so I was not selected for Gen Z Next profile. My interview went fantastic, but again, I was offered a package of 4.5 LPA. My interview somewhere lasted for about 40 to 45 minutes. So, there are certain tips and tricks that I would like to share you with all that I carried on throughout my interview. So, tip number one clearly states that prepare your introduction well. I have already prepared a video for the same. Do watch it to know how to give a perfect introduction, because I have already stated first impression is the last impression. So, make sure that you prepare your introduction very well. Tip number two says that you should not beat around the bush. If you're not aware of a particular thing, just do not tell the interviewer your wrong information, because the interviewer himself or herself knows the concept. So if you do not know a thing, just say, sir, I'm not aware of the concept. It is more likely to give a vivid impression about you. Third tip is very important. Do not lose your confidence. You may know a concept, you might not know a concept, but one thing that should be consistent with you throughout the interview is how you carry yourself, how you carry your confidence. Tip number 4 that I would like to share with you is don't ever lose your temper. The interviewer might scold you for for the concepts that you're already aware of. The interviewer might think that you are not prepared for the company. The interviewer might give you certain instructions. Do not lose your temper, because you are in need of the job, alright? So listen to the interviewer very calmly, very patiently, because his tips might land you somewhere good. Again, tip number 5 is very important. Be very thorough with your resume. Whatever you have written in your resume, it should be correct. Never ever try to falsify your resume, because the question that the interviewer would throw in front of you would be somewhere or the other related to your resume only. So, the bottom line states that make them feel that you are an asset to the company, and the company cannot afford to lose you anyhow. So, I hope that the things are very clear to you. Do not focus much on any other things except of the tips that I told you. Try to enhance your skill with every passing second. I hope you like the video. Do like it, share and subscribe the same.